Hello everyone. So what we're going to be talking about today is transitioning from home. And for those of you who've not met me before, and I know a number of you have, my experience in terms of working from home, we have run a business from home for the last 21 years. We raised 5 children during that time. And funny enough now, 3 of those children actually work for us in our business. And all of our team work from home, and they have done since they started working for us. So for us, we thought this would be a really good one to help everyone who's used to working in the workplace and now suddenly has to work from home. Many of you will probably also have children at home. And how do you manage all of that plus get work done? So we're going to share some tips that have worked for us, and we're also going to encourage you to share as well. We're going to look at how can you be effective while working from home? And there's a lot of good things we can do to make ourselves more effective and more productive, particularly during these disruptive times. We're going to look at why resilience and your wellbeing are so important if you want to be productive from working from home. And most importantly, because we are social beings, we need to stay connected. So what is it we need to do in order to stay connected with one another? And we've been trying some fun things in the last little while, which I'll share as well. And then how do we use technology to stay connected and also stay productive? Now, fun fact, and this is a quiz for everyone, prior to this current disruption that's happening to everyone, who do you think were the majority of people who telecommuted, so work from home and also potentially work from work? Men or women? Most people said women. So apparently, and these are US statistics, but 53% of men telecommuted while only 47% of women. So we've obviously seen a massive change in those stats in the last couple of weeks here in Australia. And for people overseas, some people have been doing this for the last 9 weeks. A friend of mine in Hong Kong, we were talking yesterday, and he was talking about that. And that statistic, just so I can share, it came from the University of Texas, Jennifer L. Glass, and also from University of Iowa, Mary C. Noonan. So they did some research and discovered that, in fact, I would have thought it would have been women as well, but until recently it was men, only slightly more. Now, the next slide is one of my favourite sayings, and really at the moment, this is something I hope that you all keep in the back of your mind, particularly when you get uncomfortable. Change is uncomfortable. It is also our growth. And at the moment, everyone is experiencing disruption, and our body doesn't like disruption. It is hardwired because our brain uses 20% of our energy, even though it's 2% of our body mass. So our brain likes to run on familiar programming, such as running same old habits, etc. Every time we disrupt that, it feels uncomfortable. Our body and our brain want to resist that because they want to conserve energy. The thing is, we're also resisting our growth. So in the next little while, if you're doing stuff and you're working from home and things aren't working, the kids maybe are playing up, you're feeling uncomfortable, the best advice I can give you is to recognize, 1, you're growing, and 2, be kind to yourself and others. Because when we're kind to ourselves and others, we come back to that beautiful centered space, which is so much nicer for our brain and our body than the stressed state. So in the stressed state, tongue twister, our brain tends to fire in the side of it, which is where the survival mechanism is. So we tend to go to fight, flight, freeze, or flock. The thing is, when we're working from home, most of the time what we want to be using is the front part of our brain, which is the cortex, the the prefrontal cortex. That's where we do all of our good thinking, creativity, etc. The only way we can really get full use of those is to make sure that we are nice and calm. So one of the things that helps us be calm is to be kind to ourselves. And it's why we're going to talk about self-care in a minute. First of all, however, I've got a question for everyone. What are some of the challenges that you're currently experiencing transitioning into working from home? So let's talk about how can we be more effective working remotely. One of the things is you may not have the luxury of having a dedicated workspace at home. It might be the kitchen table, the kitchen bench. As much as possible, set it up so that you are, when you're sitting or standing, that it is good from a work health and safety perspective. If you've got kids at home and they're studying, same deal for them, because the more proper we are seated or standing from a work health and safety perspective, the longer we're able to be productive and effective. So please make sure, if the light's too strong, for argument's sake, that you turn that around to make it that the space is comfortable for you. I think one of the things that, in fact, the next 2 dot points for me have always been really important. It's planning my day, and I plan my day the day before. And in fact, I plan it every Sunday. I plan my week so that I know what's most important. And the big thing is to work with your body clock. So for example, some of you will be morning people. You'll love getting up and you'll feel fired up. Now, before you get to work, make sure you do some exercise, have some breakfast, connect, etc., and then sit down. And if you're a morning person, do your more difficult tasks first up in the morning, because your brain will be firing really well. If you're more a night owl or an afternoon person, maybe do a bit of admin and checking in with teammates before you start those important tasks. And really, in these disruptive times, thinking about the top 1 to 3 things that you can do that are most important. So your day should focus more on the important tasks. And one of those important tasks needs to be connection with your team. And the other one is certainly getting up and making sure you have regular breaks. And we'll come back to that shortly. If you find yourself maybe a little bit distracted, you could connect with another team member or someone that you know really well and become accountability buddies. So you check in each day at what have you achieved? So what are you planning to achieve and what have you also achieved? The regular breaks and self-care are absolutely essential. These are how we fuel our brain and our body. And in fact, the longer you sit, the worse we become in terms of productivity. So we think that when we sit and work hour after hour, that our productivity goes upwards. What the science very clearly shows is that in fact, we hit a point and then we go downwards. We become less effective. A simple thing that I learned was that the moment I start reading something 2 or 3 times, that's my brain's signal: get up, go for a walk, have a quick break. And in that time, my brain's actually doing the heavy lifting. It's connecting things, it's refreshing. And when I go back and sit down, it helps me to be better in terms of productivity. So while it does sound slightly counterintuitive, breaks absolutely help us be more effective. A number of you mentioned communicating with others. This is absolutely critical. We are social beings. Even those of us that are introverted, we need that social connection. And we're going to talk a little bit later on about how we do that. And one of the things that absolutely keeps most of us distracted is getting off social media. So a great tip that I heard of was turn your phone on airplane mode for the morning. This is particularly relevant for my morning people. For my more afternoon, you might find that that's the best time to put it on airplane mode. That way, you're not getting distracted. And make sure you turn off all your social media notifications as well, because they are absolutely distracting. Now, a couple of other things to think about. Make sure that the moment you do celebrate a task, rather than looking at your to-do list and going, oh, I've still got all of these things to do, the moment you finish a task, I want you, and watch me, I do the party dance celebration. Do a little celebration dance or a high five or whatever works for you. What this does is it puts dopamine and serotonin into our bloodstream, which makes us want to take more action. Every time you complete a small task, little party dance, yeah, makes you smile, makes you laugh. I bet a few of you are laughing at me at the moment. And it makes us want to do it again. So if you're feeling like, oh, I don't want to do this, build in a little bit of celebration can absolutely make you want to do more. Some other things are, here's a great technique. It's called the Pomodoro technique. And it is basically, Pomodoro means tomato in Italian. And it's basically every, say, 45 minutes, work for 45 minutes, or even if it's 20 minutes, and then have a quick break. Then work for 20 minutes or 45 minutes and have a break. The idea is when you've done, say, 4 quarters, so whether it's 20 minutes, 45 minutes, and you've had your little breaks, have a longer break. The chunking down of the work into smaller pieces makes it more manageable, particularly when we've got, say, kids or partners or other family members at home. It helps us to get through tasks quicker. You know, when you go on holidays and the day before you go on holidays, you get so much done. It's because we've said to our brain, we've got to get it done. The Pomodoro is very similar in that we go, okay, brain, you've got 20 minutes or 45 minutes to get this done. and your brain becomes much more focused. So it's a really great technique, and it's called the Pomodoro technique. Feel free to Google that particular one. Now, I've got a question. Would you like the following results? Increase your focus by 30%, increasing your health and well-being by 48%, and increasing your creativity by 46%. Well, you know what it is? It's actually taking breaks. Back in 2007, the Energy Project at Harvard Business Review did a study with a heap of accounting firms, so the big four back then. And what they discovered was that the teams that took regular breaks, so they would either work for 90 minutes and take 20 minutes, or they'd work for 45 minutes and then take 10 minutes, increased their focus by 30%, increased their health and well-being by 48%, and increased their creativity and innovation by 46%. So if that doesn't convince you to start putting breaks in your days at home, then I don't know what will. But absolutely encourage you. It absolutely works. I make sure I have very regular breaks. And that segues into our next bit, which is about being resilient and improving our well-being. So one of the things we know is that the more resilient you are, the more energy you have, and the more, if something doesn't work quite right, you bounce back better. Some of the ways you know your resilience perhaps isn't as good as it could be, and for all of you, this is probably quite normal at the moment, is that if everyone starts, pardon my language, pissing you off, that generally is a sign that your resilience is starting to drop. And what it means is you're being really generous to everyone else, but you've forgotten to look after yourself first. Resilience is a bit like the oxygen mask on a plane. When the oxygen mask drops, we're supposed to put it on ourselves first and then share it with others. When we go through disruptive times, we tend to be really generous with others and we put our self-care to one side. The problem is eventually we run out of steam. And as I said, a classic symptom is you start to find that people around you are annoying you. Your work colleagues might be annoying you as well, and we'll talk about that shortly. Even virtually, you might find yourself just a bit more narky than normal. Please, that is a sign to make sure that you put a bit more self-care into you. It is the best thing you can do. Obviously, if this is going on longer term, please seek medical help, because it may be a sign of depression. There could be chemical imbalances as well. But please, I encourage you at the moment to ramp up your breaks and ramp up your self-care. The other thing that is really important is hydration. I was going to show you my water bottle. Always make sure you've got a big water bottle next to you on your work area. This will ensure that, one, you stay hydrated, which is really important for brain functioning. The other thing is it'll force you to get up because you'll need to go to the loo. So it'll stop us from sitting so long. Now is the time to eat healthy food. One of the things we know is that when people get stressed, they tend to reach for the sugary food. The problem is we know that the sugary food keeps you in the fight or flight part of your brain longer. We also now know from research that the countries with the highest sugar consumption are also the countries with the highest depression rates. So the more natural the food is, the less processed. So fruit absolutely is good for you. Seeds, nuts, obviously nuts, if you're allergic, please don't go near them. Vegetables, all those beautiful, wholesome, less processed foods. Hydration, water is the best thing. Otherwise, herbal teas. A little bit of caffeine, but not too much, because when we're stressed, it tends to make us more stressed. Sleep, and I think some of you are going to like the next part that I add with sleep. The odd nap is not a bad idea either. Sometimes when you're feeling fatigue, a nap is a nice way of just getting our brain, giving it some downtime during the day to just rest up for 20, 35 minutes and then nodding off. If you are worried that you are going to sleep for a long period of time, you can set your alarm. Another hack is, if you're going to take your nap early in the afternoon, and this won't disrupt your sleep later on, is to have a cup of coffee, then go have a nap, because about 25 minutes later, the caffeine hits your bloodstream and it'll naturally wake you up. Obviously, if caffeine keeps you awake later on in the day and at night, don't do that one. Just set an alarm. The other thing that is absolutely critical for us at the moment in order to maintain our resilience and well-being is exercise. Now, don't make a big thing if you can't get outside, for argument's sake. It can be as simple as, and I'll demonstrate here, if I'm brushing my teeth, one of the things I do now is I do squats. So I'm getting a little bit of exercise in simply while I'm brushing my teeth. And that becomes connected to my habit of brushing my teeth. Before I have a shower every morning, I do some push-ups on the bathroom sink, simple ways to just get a little bit of exercise in. The wonderful thing about exercise is, one, the moment we sweat, our brain releases a protein called BDNF, which is brain-derived neurotrophic factor. And what that is like fertilizer for our brain. So it keeps our brain growing, which is why I got convinced exercise is really important and why I bought a treadmill desk. The other thing about exercise is it helps just give us more energy. So that exercise, particularly if you've got kids at home, that can be another thing. One of my clients shared the other day that she'd done yoga with her daughter, and I thought, what a beautiful way to connect. So taking those simple opportunities to renew ourselves, refresh ourselves, and also potentially help the dogs and our children, partner, etc. The other thing that a number of you mentioned was setting that end of workday finish time. It's very difficult to sit at home, particularly if you're by yourself and work for 7-8 hours straight. Obviously taking those breaks, but making sure you set that time that you go, okay, that's the end of the day for me. And as much as humanly possible, you stop at that time, either close your computer or whatever device you're working on, or close the door to the room if you have an office, and don't go back in till the next day. Some other things that you can do, music can be really helpful if you like music in the background. That can help relax you. Watching the odd humorous video, for argument's sake. My lovely hairdresser has been sending me the funniest videos over the last little while on Messenger, and they just make my day, and I share them when I get them. Some other things, be really mindful of your language, because our language either makes the situation less stressful or more stressful. We have deliberately changed the language. We don't use the name of the virus or any of those things anymore. We just talk about disruption. Very important, because disruption is more neutral than, say, virus, which everyone seems to get a bit heightened in terms of, there's a virus, it could be catchy. We were talking about social distancing. It's now much better language is physical distancing, social connecting, because that social bit is hardwired into our brain in terms of meaning safety for us. So social, we want to talk about connecting. It's okay, and obviously really important to physically distance ourselves from others. Doesn't mean we should socially distance ourselves from others. Thrive Global, who, if you don't follow them on social media, highly would recommend. They produce some fabulous stuff. Today I got an email and it was, try these unexpected tips to help boost your focus at home, by Marina Chidelli. And some of the things she suggested, which I just thought I'd share with you: stretch breaks. So set your alarm for a break and then get up and do a bit of stretching. Even while you're listening to me at the moment, I'd love it if you did a couple of stretches, really good for you. Use your breaks to connect with your loved ones. So you could call your loved ones, perhaps even do a video chat. If your loved ones talk a lot, you might want to send a short video rather than a text. And I'll explain the science around that a little bit later. It lights people's faces up. Make sure that you, if you can, put your desk near a window so you can look outside and look at, hopefully, some nature around you. The other thing that I think for those of you who've got family at home is to set some family tech guidelines. And one of the things they suggested is that the TV is for evening entertainment, that while you're on video, that we turn emails off, because otherwise it disrupts and interrupts, and turning off the ringer sound unless obviously there's some sort of emergency happening for you, because again it disrupts. And the moment our brain goes from, say, watching this video, ping, email, that disruption takes us then time, it uses our brain's bandwidth, and it takes time to get fully focused on what we were doing before. So we can get through things much faster by actually just focusing and then taking the breaks to use our technology. A couple of other things, if you like smell, because smell's a really fast way to calm us down or to increase how we're feeling. Citrus smells make us feel more focused and alive. So for those of you that maybe are feeling a bit sluggish, if you can light a candle, obviously with safety, or if you've got any sort of scent diffuser, getting some either lemon, orange, those types of scents to wake you up. And a really nice end to the day is to swap that to those more soothing smells such as lavender. I think that's a really nice way of having a nice end to the day. Lavender will also encourage your brain. And for those of you who do go to bed and you're finding you're tossing and turning, please make sure you turn off your devices at least an hour before bedtime. And one thing that really helps is warm, say shower, and then cold. When our body gets cold, it naturally wants to hibernate. So then snuggling into bed, that will help you as well. Now, obviously, these are not all things you'll do during the day, but they are ways to support you to be more productive. And I have this beautiful story to share from a client of mine. A couple of days ago, she bought a brand new monitor because she was setting herself up to work from home. And 3 days in, she broke it. And she said she got so upset. And then she remembered that she still had a job. And she had a number of friends who have lost their jobs. And she remembered that her life wasn't so bad. So there is a lovely technique called 5-5-5. Which is, will this matter to me in 5 weeks, 5 months, 5 years? And if the answer is no, then put that perspective around it and go, you know what, this too shall pass. It is what it is. Notice those beautiful neutral terms. And she just remembered gratitude. So falling back to gratitude can absolutely help us, including keeping a gratitude journal. So perspective can be really, really important. So I'm curious now, in the chat box, I want you to share some of the things that you're doing, and they may not be what we've already shared. I'd love for you to share some of the things you've been doing to stay resilient, minimizing news exposure to 1 to 2 times a day. Yes, because that tends to send us to the threat scenario. Even practicing a bit of calm breathing after you've watched the news can be really helpful. And I love quotes. So people today really value workplace flexibility and remote work because it allows them to focus their energies on work and life as opposed to commuting or other complications due to geography. So one of the things that I think when it starts to get a little bit stressed, we need to remember that we're all probably saving a bit more time because we're not having to commute. The environment is much better off at the moment. Even watching the video about the Venice canals where the dolphins are coming back, it's extraordinary, the change with just 2 weeks of people not being around. There are some good things to focus on in terms of, yes, this is disruption, and there are also some positives coming out of it. Now let's talk about how we're going to stay connected. We encourage all of you to check in daily with team members, maybe not the whole team. What we do in our company is weekly, every Monday, we have a team meeting where everyone gets on board on Teams, and we share, you know, how our weekend was and also what we're going to do for the next week. Then daily, we just do individual check-ins with those via, you know, a number of different methods. Now, here I've got, we're available, we use video. One of the things that we've learnt about communication, and this is really important in this time where we are not seeing each other face to face, is that the most effective type of communication is face to face. The second most effective is video. So what we're doing at the moment. And the reason is because when we can see each other, we can see the expressions. Now in our brain, we have, I like to call them the 2 fangs at the front of our brain, which are called mirror neurons. So for example, if I go, and it's a real yawn, some of you will start to yawn because I've done that. Those mirror neurons pick up the little signals from one another. If I frown slightly, you'll pick it up. If I smile slightly, you'll pick it up as well. Those mirror neurons, we need to see what's going on. And so therefore, face-to-face is most effective communication. Coming a very close second is video. Below that is audio. So if you can't do a video, either using audio conferencing or talking on the phone will work. We now know that the least effective are texting and emails. The thing with texting and emails is all we've got is words. On audio, we can at least pick up changes in people's voice, which helps us go, maybe I didn't communicate that as well. When we send a text or we send an email, people don't have any of those visuals or auditory cues to pick up on what is meant. So during these challenging times or disruptive times, the more we can be either talking or, best case, doing videos, the better. It will help calm people if we are happy, we're smiling, etc., and less likely to be misinterpreted. Now, sometimes you still will be misinterpreted, because if someone's brain is in the fight or flight because they are highly stressed, they won't necessarily be able to hear what you are saying, because what happens when we get really stressed is the part of the brain that does all of our processing and our intellectual work, front of the brain, the blood flow is actually stripped from here and given to the fight or flight part under stress. We know that when someone's super stressed, that it cuts their IQ in half in 7 minutes. So this is where being kind, being compassionate to your fellow colleagues, if they're a bit stressed, because they may not necessarily hear what you've said the first time. And it may be good to follow it up with an email, but as much as possible, make that first contact face-to-face or over the phone or over audio. A really important thing to do again in these disruptive, I'll change my language, is to start your meetings on a positive personal note. Okay, what's one fun thing that happened to you this last week? The reason we do that is because, again, being social beings, we like to connect at that level, and it helps create a thing called psychological safety, which is, in fact, the number one thing for high-performing teams. The second factor in psychological safety is that everyone in the team gets equal time. The wonderful thing about, say, a platform like Zoom and what we're doing at the moment is everyone can have equal time by typing in the chat box. The other thing is, think about having either I would suggest monthly lunch and learn. So someone in your team picks maybe a good TED video. Everyone sits around, watches that TED video while they're eating lunch. And then over either audio or video, we talk about what we learned from that TED talk. Really nice way to keep everyone learning, and also obviously connecting with one another. I'm having lots of virtual coffees at the moment and lunches. Again, great ways to catch up. Our team the other day, we had a lunch. We all sat down with our lunch and we played a game, and I'm trying to think, I think I wrote it a little bit later on an app that helped us play games and watch one another at the same time. So much fun. So a little bit of fun helps us stay connected as well. Now, a couple of other things. Create some new online team rituals. It could be that one person each time comes with a quiz question. Thank you. Oliva's just put in there, it's called House Party. I knew one of my wonderful team would know. Please think about, instead of texting, setting a video or an audio file. It doesn't have to be long. It's just saying, hey, just checking in on you. How are you going? Give me a call or send me, let me know when you'd like to connect. The other thing is, it's really important to, because we all cope differently, to really practice that kindness and compassion. I've included in the resources at the end of this a fabulous article that I read today on LinkedIn from Harvard Business Review around compassion. And a couple of things that they said is, with uncertainty, we obviously go to the fight or flight part of our brain more. In that state, we tend to be more judgmental and also more tense. When we do that, our compassion and our empathy decline. The thing is, we need to break our default, which, we usually go back to a default when we're not happy. It's somewhere along the spectrum of fight, flight, freeze. What we need to do is become curious. And some of the things they said is, the moment you start getting a little bit tense or frustrated, remember that this is an opportunity to connect. We also need to remember and remind our brain, hey, not everyone's the same. They're coping the best they can. It is what it is. My role here is to be kind and compassionate. And rather than focusing on what the person or who the person is, focus on the dynamic circumstances that they are experiencing at the moment. It takes it away from being personal. Also acknowledge how you're feeling, because if you're a bit tense, you're probably not so aware that your emotional intelligence has probably dropped a bit. So just going, oh, how am I feeling at the moment? Oh, not great. Okay, what do I need to do to change my state? Really simple thing. It sounds weird. I've got a pen. When we put a pen between our teeth, it sort of forces us to smile. When we smile, our body believes that it should be a bit happier. And so it starts to put those beautiful feel-good chemicals into our bloodstream. The other things are maybe previously work and home was seen as different. Now work and home are sort of together. So part of the new reality or the new normal is that what's going on at home for your team is part of work now. So if suddenly you're having a video conference with another team member and a child walks in, that's just the new normal. Don't judge it. Just go, okay, that's what's happening. There's all sorts of things that are going to interrupt. We get stressed about it. It makes us less effective working from home. And last thing this article talks about, and as I said, I've given you a link in the resources at the end, is don't compare suffering. So if someone is telling you something's not great, and in coaching we talk about, we all have a need from time to time to do what we call BMW moments. And BMW is not the car, it is bitch, moan and whine. And whine has a H in it until the evening perhaps. And that's where we need to go, blah, this isn't working for me. And then we go to solution. Going blah is actually an important brain function because it allows us to verbally process what's going on. Once we've done that, we breathe deeply and the blood flow comes back and we can solve the situation. The worst thing we do is go, oh, but at least you're not as bad as, because the moment we do that, we diminish that person's experience. Just accept that experience for what it is. So I am curious, what are some other things that you are doing? I'd love for you now to share, what are the things you're doing to stay connected with others? And this can be family, but also obviously work colleagues as well. And this really is a way to say to our fellow team members, you matter. I'm just checking in how you're going. Another one I heard about, an organisation had Zoom and they just left Zoom open all day, and at any stage the team could just jump on, and if someone was there they could just connect. Another way of keeping people connected. So I want every one of you just to do the party dance to celebrate the fact that you're actually taking that action. All right, let's get going. So we've talked about most of this already. A couple of things with technology. If you've got a meeting where everyone has a microphone and they can all be on simultaneously, please remember to mute your microphone when you're not talking. The other week I had to run a strategic planning session for a business chamber because we went online literally overnight because of the virus. And a couple of them, to start with, forgot about the mute. And so they were talking or they were moving around and created that rustling noise in the background. So the important thing is to, if you can mute, make sure you mute when you're not speaking. This is where, with the video, we can do things like thumbs up, so with that idea. That allows a meeting to actually be faster. If you think about it, what's everyone thinking about this idea? Thumbs up. We can see one another straight away. Nodding is obviously important. If someone's vigorously nodding, they agree with your idea already. If you can see that on video, we know when we can move forward or where we need to have more discussions. Waving, any of those things is important. David, I like that. Not muting your mic is the new reply all. That's so true. So taking that time to mute is awesome. The other thing is, the house party was the app I was talking about. Take time to have that fun. House Party is a video app and it has some real fun games. The first part of it's free. And again, it's a great way to connect with your team. There's a whole stack of platforms. I've only put a few here, but I would encourage you to utilize different ones, and don't be afraid to just record a short video or audio on your phone and send it, whether it's via Messenger, etc., to whoever you're reaching out to. So that's sort of all I've got for the moment in terms of ideas. I really would love to know now, what are you going to do slightly differently to work from home better? And then I'm going to come to see if you've got other questions and share some resources, etc. All of my coaching clients know I have a saying, which is, it is what it is. It's not good or bad, it just is. Remembering that this too will pass, and just coming back to what is most important in this moment for me. At the end of the day, this is a time for us to come back to what's really important, to learn a bit more balance. We don't need to be rush all the time. So this is a perfect opportunity to really get a bit more structure about what's important, make sure we take those breaks and switch off at the end of the day. Now, for all of our webinars that we're running over the next week or so, we've got a heap of helpful resources for you to take moving forward. So there's a TED Talk here. The article I was talking about from Harvard Business Review, I encourage everyone to read this one. It was a fabulous read. There's also 300 of the best tools and resources for working from home. And there's some podcasts for those of you who are a bit auditory. And remote is spelt in caps because that's how the book is actually spelt. So I'd encourage you, depending on your learning preferences, to seek out some of those resources to keep improving what you're doing from working from home. A number of you would have seen the number of webinars that we're going to be running over the next little while. If you've got any other ideas of areas that you would like us to run some free webinars, please either put them in the chat box or send us an email at learn@magicallearning.com. We're here really, we're doing these to support our community, and you are part of our community. Anyone you think that would benefit from anything that we're doing, please feel free to share this information. For those of you that want to also keep your work skills up, we are doing a session on the 13th of May. Again, it's a free webinar on work-life balance. And we do one every month. And these are all free, no charge. We just basically want to support people as they go through these challenging times. Now, for those of you who are parents and maybe are struggling a little bit with your kids at home, I just wanted to let you know that on Thursday, we are running, we as in I'm running this one, but we've got Liv, one of our daughters who works in early childcare. So this will be for kids from early childcare all the way through to year 12. How can you help your kids learn better at home? So that is happening at midday on Thursday. If I go back a slide, if you go to this link here, you'll find that on that page. Feel free to share that with anyone who you know might be struggling a little bit with their kids, or just is looking for some tips on how do I help my kids learn better. I would encourage you this month, and for however long we're sort of going through this, connect with us either on social media, through email, etc. We're here to support you. We will do whatever we can. We've got so many resources. We're doing lots of videos to share just to help people move through these times and do as best as they possibly can. Have a great afternoon. I want you all to celebrate that you got on this. This is awesome. All right. Well, have a great afternoon.